Hey everybody, Economic Ninja here. I hope you are doing great. Sorry, you got some glare off the TV. Uh, we're going to talk about private payrolls. We're going to talk about the fact that we are in a moment where companies are able to hire some people again, and people think the economy is ticking up, but it's actually not. Why? Because as more people get jobs, there will be more inflation. Why? Because people have money, they spend money, and it's like real estate. It turns into a bidding war. If there's only a little bit of product out there, a little bit of homes, a little bit of stuff at the stores, things like that, the price goes up because you have more buyers than sellers. This is the Fed's worst nightmare. Why? Because the Fed needs you unemployed. They need you scared. They need you not having a paycheck because that means you spend less or nothing at all. And that that causes deflation. That means there's less dollars chasing after goods or services. This is the big conundrum that they're in. Most people do not know how this works. So let's talk about a story right now out of CNBC. And it says, private payrolls added 164,000 in December, beating expectations, ADP says. Now, when they talk about this, remember, that means if people keep getting jobs, then the Fed can't lower rates. Why? Because it will only exacerbate the problem with inflation. Most people, even some economists, fail to understand this. And that is why it's so darn important to watch all of this data that comes out. It says right here, hiring in the private sector rose at a faster than expected pace in December, closing out a strong 2023 for the resilient U.S. jobs market, ADP reported on Thursday. Private payrolls increased by 164,000 for the month, a substantial rise from the downwardly revised 101,000 in November, and better than the 130,000 estimate from the Dow Jones Consensus, according to payrolls processing firm. In another sign of strength, initial jobless claims fell for the last full week of 2023, indicating that the labor market remains tight and vibrant, and the companies are reluctant to lay off workers. Let me explain a couple things. First off, I do not believe that you are seeing companies selling out like crazy. I do not go to hotels. Right now, I'm up in Northern California. The hotels, the parking lots, they're not jam-packed full, okay? Everywhere I go, I talk to employers. I say, what's going on with your employee situation right now? They're like, we're still having a hard time finding people. Why? Because the fact of the matter is the government are paying people to be unemployed. If you think for a second that's not possible, I want you to understand what's going on with people from other countries here residing and they're getting health care and all that stuff. Think about this. Think about how much money is being printed right now. Our government debt is expanding at a rate that's so crazy. You have to realize employers are still having a hard time finding people to work for them. So even though they're not making a ton of money, and I'm about to do a story on DoorDash because I think it's really interesting how it's really robbing employers, taking a certain amount of their money, and they don't want to lay off people because they're afraid of if they shrink down a little bit for a season, because seasonality shrinkage when it comes to employees is a normal thing. However, now it isn't because employers are afraid that if they lay someone off for a season, they're not going to be able to retain a new employee to backfill that person when business picks back up. Okay, so again, as these private payrolls increase, it doesn't mean that the companies are making a ton of money. Quite to the contrary, they're dealing with higher wages, higher inflation, so costs of their goods and services that they're having to purchase to make their business, go well. And it's not good. This all spells disaster for the Federal Reserve because the Federal Reserve goes, there's no way we can lower rates right now. We haven't broken the backbone. And that's why this bubble isn't still getting big. It's just tight and big. It's tight. It's just the balloon's almost vibrating. Before a balloon actually pops, it actually goes into this slight vibrational pulse because what's happening is all of the the electrons and all this stuff that makes up the substance is starting to its breaking point, and they're stretching thin, and they're not able to hold their elasticity, their strength. And that's what's happening right now with the US economy. We're seeing certain deflationary drops. We're already seeing it like in car sales. because you used to have $3,000 or $4,000 over MSRP in some models. And those same models, you're seeing $3,000 or $4,000 under MSRP. Um, we're seeing deflation in certain places, but not in others. And the Fed knows that, okay? So if or when the Fed lowers rates this next year or this year, 2024, you have to understand that it's going to be politically driven, okay? They want you to think that everything's okay, but it'll only be for a season. This has happened 4 different times since 1972 when the Fed went into a big raising campaign. Then they dropped off about 75 basis points. Nothing good happened from that 75 basis points, and they had to shoot up. And usually it's about an additional 20 to 30% up if you look at how far it rose in the first place to when they actually quell inflation. That would put the Fed funds rate at around 6.5 to 7.5%. A mortgage would be well into the teens at that point, okay? So not well in, but in the low teens. So that's what I want people to be thinking about. Now, again, it says here, a rebound in leisure and hospitality led the way as the sector added 59,000 positions, ADP reported. Hotels, restaurants, bars, and similar establishments were leaders in job creation after getting eviscerated in the early days of the closures. But that trend trailed off in recent months. The sector also led in wage gains with annual growth of 6.4%. So wage gains, now remember, people get excited, wage gains. That's more money that the company is putting out. And it's not just, this is what's really important people understand. If you employ people, let's say you give a $10 an hour raise to someone, that employee is super stoked. Well, the company is not only now losing an additional $10 an hour out of its margin, right? So if they're thin, they're getting squeezed even harder. They have to pay unemployment tax, which sometimes, depending on the industry, could mean, hey, $10 goes to the employee. I need to pay now an additional $4.50, depending on the type of insurance I need to pull on this employee and pay for them in insurance costs. So it costs the employer up to $14.50. Now, if the employer is doing great, then that's awesome. The employee's great, that's awesome. But by and large, companies aren't giving raises because their company is crushing it. It's because they're being fought with strikes in the nation, and they are dealing with retaining employees just to be able to stay open. Look, there's a lot of stuff going on. Please see the big picture here. We are moving into a crash, and we are crashing. But this part right now, that balloon just about to blow up, is a big deal. Hope you had a great day. The Ninja is out.